Welcome to the Ballad of Butler County, a business podcast by the Butler County Chamber of Commerce. On this show, you will get to know the movers and shakers that make Butler County, well, Butler County, one of the fastest growing counties in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the number one ranked county in all of Pennsylvania for incoming private investment. I'm your host, Jordan Grady. So today on the show, I'm joined by John Giles, who's our first guest. John, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Tell us who John Giles is. Who is the man sitting right beside me in this wonderful podcast studio?
Well, I mean, it's, lots of different things, but, I guess the most relevant is I'm a Butler native. I grew up here, went to Butler High School, graduated from there back in the late 80s, and went on to a trade school for computer programming, ended up starting a business here, growing it substantially, and then we sold in 2017 and started over.
So we'll get into both of the companies in both phases of your life. But for right now, give us a little bit about the Round 2 POS and Butler Business Systems.
Well, it's basically, everything. We had a company prior, Future POS, and it was all the things we wanted to do in Future, but didn't have the time and money to do. So we really, after we sold the company, got to take a period of time to step back, look at what we did right, look at what we could do better, and then tackle it again with fresh technology and a fresh set of eyes.
Very interesting. Okay, John. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing. I'm sure it all wasn't, rainbows and roses the whole time. Can you talk to us about, where you got started, your humble beginnings?
Well, I guess, it all started. I was born. My mother had me when she was 21, and so she wasn't married, and we moved in with my grandparents, who raised me, like their own, and kind of taught me values. And they had the Depression era economic values, which was good. They didn't waste. They worked hard. And I lived with them until I was about 8, and then my mother got married, and the three of us moved in together, and it was less than ideal. My stepfather was not a worker, I guess is the nicest way to phrase it. And so, we were on public assistance and things like that. And I know we brushed on it last night, but it was one of those things that there was a period of time I lived in a mobile home park, and I was determined not to live in a mobile home park when I was grown. So it kind of lit a fire in me that man, I gotta make something happen. Nobody's going to hand me anything in this world. So, fast forward a few years, after 9th grade, my grandfather had passed away, and my grandmother basically couldn't keep the house by herself. So I moved in with her, became kind of the man of the house. It was kind of a symbiotic relationship. We took care of each other in the beginning. I did all the man chores around the house, mowing, raking leaves, and all that good stuff that she wasn't physically able to do. And she fed and clothed me, did the laundry and stuff like that. So it was a good relationship. And I ended up taking care of her till I was almost 30, actually, and staying in Butler because, it was funny. A lot of people moved away and did what they were going to do after high school. It's like, I got to take care of grandma. She took care of me. So I stayed here and made my future in Butler.
So was there any other deciding factors as to why to stay? Was there anything else that you can recall? It was like, you knew this was the place you needed to be?
It's home. I can't say that I had that wanderlust where I wanted to get out of Butler. I did that for a year. I went to a trade school in Pittsburgh. And after living in the city for a year, I was like, you know what? I'm definitely a country mouse. This city living is just not for me. Too noisy, too crime ridden, all that. So I just kind of came back to Butler because it was home base, and grandma was here, had to help take care of her still. And I just never really had considered doing anything but coming back to Butler and taking care of my grandmother.
So let's talk about the trade school a little bit. I'm assuming that's where you kind of learned the basics for software development. Can you talk a little bit about that period of your life?
Oh yeah, it was a 9-month trade school. So my grandfather had left me money to go to school, but it wasn't very much by the standards of the day. I think it would have been good for a one year at PC3 or Slippery Rock or something like that. So I'm like, well, that's not going to get me too far. So I went the trade school route because I thought, well, hopefully I'll get out of school, and in those 3 years, I can get caught up to where people coming out of school with no experience and a bachelor's degree are at. And it sort of kind of worked out that way. But so I went to the trade school, and it was funny because I got this certificate at the end of it, and it was the cheapest. It looked like somebody made it in their basement. I'm like, that's what you get for for that much tuition, I guess. So I used that. It was a challenge back then to get a job though, because there was a lot of I don't want to say snobbery, but like if you didn't have that bachelor's degree, it was just an instant
Mhm.
disqualifier for a technical field like that. So it took me a while to get my foot in the door, and I had to, work some jobs that were less than ideal to try and finally find my starting point for a programming career.
Yeah, well. Speaking of things made in basements, I know we touched earlier that they could potentially be hearing from an entrepreneur who developed a world-renowned POS software from his grandparents' basement. Can you talk about? Well, first of all, let me ask you this: do
Mhm.
you believe in the butterfly effect? Like if you kill a butterfly, then all of a sudden a crazy world event never happens, or
Yeah.
things like that. Talk about how different would your life have been if you never moved in with your grandparents? How important was that part of your journey?
Well, it's I don't yeah, I'd say it was crucial really because it gave me a chance to kind of get out of the drama and dysfunction. I used to always joke that mobile home parks are a great place to meet poorly supervised girls with daddy issues, but beyond that, there's a lot of downside to it. So yeah, it was a much better environment and far more conducive to an academic pursuit versus kind of it was always chaos there. There was
Mhm.
like the cops were getting called on some neighbor like it seemed like every night of the week.
So I'm guessing that that's a big driver to like you went through that experience
Yeah.
knowing the trials and tribulations that were created by it, and I'm guessing that was probably some driving motivation to want to be a better version of yourself and build something. Is that a correct
Yeah,
assumption?
I mean, there's definitely multiple layers to it. I mean, there were some things about it, like anything you go through that like hardens you in life, obviously was worth doing. But there were certain things that like I remember, a welfare Christmas for a kid is just like heartbreaking. When you feel
Mhm.
like you've been a good kid all
Mhm.
year, like what's Santa going to do, and how's he getting down this chimney of this trailer? Um, and most years he didn't. So there was a part of me that said, I never want to bring my kids into a situation like this. I want to do better by them and have a better life for them. But it was also humbling, I guess, too, because uh, yeah, this is probably every husband, but my wife will be like, "Are you really going to go out wearing that?" I'm like, what do I care? It's like you can't. When you're the poor kid in school, you don't get to be vain. You don't get to be showy. It's like, yeah, this is what they bought me. I'm the poor kid.
Not a country clubber, right?
Right. So I mean, but that humility kind of gives you a base, like things aren't the end of the world. You know what I mean? It's like nice to have things, but if you don't have things, as long as you have the people you care about, it'll all be okay.
So did you always have aspirations to start your own business, be an entrepreneur, or was there a professional journey that led you to this opportunity?
I think it was always going to happen in one way or another,
Mm.
no matter what it ended up being. I used to always joke that I was a lousy employee. I hated making money for other people. So I think there was going to be a point where I broke out and did my own thing, no matter what that thing was. Did I always have it? I think that there were people in Butler, and I've said this before. I was blessed to win the Bill Morgan Award in 2014. We
Yeah.
just talked about that last
Mhm.
night, and it was really it really meant a lot to me because as a little kid growing up in Butler, and this may be before your time, but Bill Morgan was a big deal here.
Mhm.
He started with this little diner down on Jefferson Street here, and then he built one out at the Eastland Diner and owned that property. He developed an office building on the south side, and then I think his crowning achievement was the one on Diamond Park.
Mhm.
So it was like you saw this guy that had started with basically nothing and incrementally just kept working hard and building on his successes and was able to achieve something where people still say his name decades after he's gone.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean it was inspirational to me, and then I guess it was almost surreal to win the Bill Morgan Award. It's like, man, I've arrived. It's like they're saying me in the same name as Bill Morgan, or in the same
Mm.
sentence as Bill Morgan. So yeah, it felt good. So I think it's a combination of I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I always wanted to work hard and achieve and have the things I didn't have in my youth. But also there were people to look up to in Butler that
Mhm.
you could say, you know what, I want to do some of the things that guy did someday when I'm grown. So
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power when you see someone accomplish something like that
mhm,
in the same space that you're in. That seems like you had some motivation and you knew it was possible.
mhm,
Um, and I would assume that you're inspiring the next generation too, who are looking at John Giles and saying, "This is possible."
mhm.
It's a generational effect there, which I think is really cool.
Well,
Now,
it kind of goes to your point about the butterfly effect, because I had a friend say that to me one time. He's like, you don't realize how many kids you inspire that you're never even going to meet. They
that's right.
drive by your
Yeah.
house and they hear the story and they're like, man, that could be me someday. If I just work really hard and smart and am smart with my money. And so, yeah, it's like, I'm cognizant of that because, just a friend pointed it out. He's like, you have no idea how many kids that have just been to your house that you don't even know their names, that were friends of your
Yeah.
kids, and they're like, "Man, I can go get a piece of that pie for me someday," and God bless them. I hope they do.
Yeah, I mean it's really a powerful, and you had talked about you had known the Bill Morgan name
Mhm,
before I even met you. I had heard the story that you developed this industry changing software from your grandparents' basement.
mhm,
So people were already talking about John Giles in that manner, which is awesome, and I'm so glad I get the chance to interview today.
mhm,
So. It seems like Bill Morgan was somewhat of an inspiration or even a mentor without him knowing,
mhm.
being a mentor to you. Is there any other mentors along your way on your professional journey that stick out as if I didn't meet so and so, my path would have been different.
I always liked the programming thing from high school. So when I went to the trade school, I was very convinced that this is what I want to do. But it was a 9 month school, so you really didn't learn a whole lot there. And just like probably college, you learn so much more in your first year in the field than you ever did in the classroom.
Mhm.
So I had the chance to, even though I wasn't working as a programmer, I worked in this place. That it was a junk mail factory. Call it what it was. They did bulk mail, and I got to meet some of the programmers that they had on their staff there, and there was one guy, Leo Toribio. He was a quirky dude. I won't comment on his fashion, but we used to call him Leo Turbo because he was like in his own world. He was very smart, but just not very social,
Mhm.
just lacking the social skills. But it was great because I could come to him with very specific technical questions, and he'd give me an answer like right off the top of his head, or he would give me this puzzled look and be like, "I'll be back." He would like go off and he would come back and be like, "This is how you do that." I'm like, "Thanks, Leo. I'm gonna take that home. That's gold. I'm gonna put that to use in my life."
So how important is having mentors? Do you think that's something that the generation that's coming up now, it's very important to find the right mentors who will kind of give them guidance?
I mean, I think in every generation that's important. You should have people that you can look up to, that make you want to be a better version of yourself. That you aspire to do what they did or go where they went. So I mean, yeah, I hope to maybe be that mentor someday. We've
Mhm.
done some things, when I'm not working, as far as mentoring. But I suppose when I fully retire someday, I'll probably look to do more of that because I do see the value in it. There are
Mhm.
a lot of kids that maybe have not had that brush with somebody
Mhm.
to tell them that the more is possible.
That's right.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you came from. I have a friend that always says, doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. And that's kind of the lesson. It doesn't.
Mhm.
Yeah, not everybody's born into a great situation,
Mhm.
but you make your own luck at a point and keep making luck, and it'll eventually work out for you.
That's right. So, we briefly touched on round two in Butler Business Systems, and I think we did mention Future POS.
Mhm.
So, the next part of this conversation is going to be largely focused around that part of your life. Can you tell us exactly what Future POS was, just some general details?
Yeah, well, it's a point of sale software for restaurants. Like the story goes, I started it in my grandmother's basement, worked on it for 4 years before I ever sold the first one, and literally just started driving in bigger circles around Butler looking for people that would sell my software. And found a couple guys in Pittsburgh that didn't end up panning out in the long run. Ended up in Akron, Ohio, and I met the Pritchard brothers, who they were selling a more expensive product, and they were getting beat by people that had products similar to mine. So I left him a copy of the software, and it was really funny. He calls me on the weekend, and he's like, "Dude, I'm printing my daughter's picture on the receipt printer." I'm like, that's great. It does a whole bunch of other stuff, but if that one, floats your boat, awesome. Yeah. And apparently he had been asking the company that he was repping for years to make the printers print images, and they just never did it. They didn't deem it important enough for him to be a big enough dealer for them to care. So it was like ever since then, it was like we were like, partners in growing this. And, he built his business from a very small dealership to, I think he had about 700 customers when he sold. So yeah, we did a lot of damage together. So yeah, we were very dominant in the Ohio market, and we did our best over here in PA to hold our own. And we kind of had a gentleman's agreement that the Ohio PA line is where we stop.
Yeah. And so, obviously you went on to build the software and sell it. At its peak, can you talk about, because, we mentioned it was, internationally known, globally known, world renowned. Can you talk about the peak of Future POS? How many resellers, how many countries, some of the data around that?
Yeah, we were, I think we had about 82 resellers, independent businesses that were selling our software in different markets. And I would have to guess 8 to 12 countries that we were selling it in. And it was very successful at the end. We were probably, I would say, in the top 5 hospitality point of sale products in the country. And we would win awards consistently, like almost every year, for the quality of our software and how we took care of people. And I took a lot of pride in that. Now my wife certainly had a hand in that because she was a shameless marketer. But yeah, we won. RSPA is our industry group, and something like 12 out of 14 years we won an award. Yeah. So we mopped the floor with a lot of companies. And it's kind of funny because we got bought, and like everybody at the top of the food chain got bought. And now I'm coming back to the industry, and there's these companies that I just used to beat like a drum back in the day. It's like, man, you guys it's going to be like deja vu. I'm just going to come back and kick your ass again.
I love that. Round 2, right? Ding, ding.
Yep.
So what year so you researched it for 4 years. What year did you go to the market and launch the software of Future?
98. Yeah. That was the same year I got married. And yeah, we did, but I don't know where you're going to go down the rabbit hole of the installs and how that all went.
So I'm curious, let's take it back to 1998. Talk to us about the process, the grind of building this, making it work, the struggles. Just give us a glimpse of what it takes.
Yeah. If you have that entrepreneurial spirit, let me tell you what you're in for. So I wrote it for 4 years, just spare time, evenings, weekends, holidays. And I finally felt like it was to the point where we could install it in a restaurant and try it out and see how it went. Should be pretty close. And we stuck it in a restaurant. It was a pretty busy restaurant. And they did it. I think they had 4 stations, which would have been a lot for a first install. It just fell over, man. It was a complete disaster. I got kicked out in like the first 2 weeks. So I was like, I was kind of broken, but I'm like, all right, well, we'll soldier forward, because I felt bad. The guys that installed it for me, they had bought 4 computers that just got pulled back out. Now they're out that money. So I'm like, well,
this is year 1 too.
Yeah, this is year 1. So I'm like, man, I can't let Ed get stuck with that stuff. I've got to find, I got to make this work. I got to, get him his money back, so he can move on with his life, because I felt really bad. So we got it was a bar, and it was just one station, and that worked great because we didn't have all the networking issues that were clearly still buggy as heck. And after that, we did a pizza shop. It was like three terminals. It was a little chain in Pittsburgh called the Unique Pizza Factory, and that went pretty smooth. We did some features specific to pizza and all that stuff. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm like, yeah, we're ready for a bigger challenge. And we did this place called the Monterey Marina down in Monongahela. And oh my God, like the wheels just absolutely fell off. Everything that could break did. It was 2 very impatient guys that would call me at 2 a.m., swear at me, and I'm like, yeah, I know my stuff sucks. I'll be down first thing in the morning. And yeah, it was rough, man. It was like a 3-month boot camp of figuring out how to fix this stuff, like with your hair on fire. And it's not funny, but the guy that did the hardware for this install had like a nervous breakdown in the middle of it because of the stress. So I'm like, well, I get where you're coming from, man. This sucks. But we found a way through it, learned a whole heck of a lot, trial by fire, about networking and Windows, and we got it to work. And once that one worked, then everything else just sort of went smoother. But there was there were some lean times that first year. In fact, there was like 3 months while I was dealing with all the headaches there that I didn't make a nickel. And I think I told you the story last night. There was a freak snowstorm that came through, and I like grabbed the snow shovel and threw it in my Mazda and drove over to Sterling Village, where that was like the rich neighborhood at the time. And I just literally shoveled sidewalks and driveways for an afternoon, made like $75 and filled my gas tank and bought a case of beer. So life was good again.
Yeah. I mean, that's that you'll do whatever to make it happen. So in 1998, were you sales, service?
Yeah. First and last line of defense. Yeah, I was everything. Because the resellers, I mean, they had the customers, but they were cash register customers. And these were cash register people. So they really didn't know point of sale, computer networking, any of that stuff any better than I did. So I was kind of like, they'd look at me like, well, I don't know, why is it not working? And like, I don't know, let me do some research and figure it out. But yeah, we had all kinds of things and that we had to figure out the hard way. And but yeah, it was an interesting year. But I want to say that first year all in, I made $17,000. And yeah, thank God I was living with grandma, man. I'd have been starving otherwise.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the butterfly effect.
Yeah,
moving into grandma's house, and doing whatever you can to make it work. So I love personally the shoveling snow story.
Yeah,
that to me, like dictionary definition of an entrepreneur. Snowstorm, screw it. I got to go get my shovel. I'm going to shovel as many sidewalks as possible because I got to make this work. I had to
put gas in the tank so I could get back to fix the bugs back in Monongahela.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, I guess the most important question is what type of beer was it?
Oh God, back then I think it's probably Labatt's Blue.
Oh yeah. So and I have in my notes here. We talked about this last night. You see some of these entrepreneurs that are kind of mainstream now. Your Elon Musk, your Mark Cubans. And usually they build a company and they sell it. And from there they multiply and keep doing it. So talk about what it was like to build something from scratch and then the decision to sell it. Because, I mean, in a way, when you build a company and you create something from nothing, it's almost like a child.
Oh, very much so.
So talk about, how that was.
Well, honestly, I've for years and years said I'm never going to sell because I had no desire to. I wanted to eventually bring my kids into it and all that stuff. So when the offer came, I initially said no, thank you. I'm very flattered, but we're just not interested. But then I sat and thought about it for a while, and there comes a point in your career where you logically need to take some chips off the table. Think about your retirement. Think about your next chapter of your life. So I mean, the offer was right. But it was still a very difficult thing to sell. One of your children is basically what it is. And anybody out there that's got a business and is thinking about selling, I always love to tell the joke. If you wake up the day you're going to sell your company and say, oh my God, they're going to screw this up and ruin it, there's an 88% chance you're right. So when you sell that business, you have to be satisfied that whatever the upfront money is, may be all you get. And is that enough to make it worthwhile? And then B, you have to accept the fact that they are probably going to run your life's work into the garbage. And that's pretty much what happened. They kind of picked apart the pieces that they wanted and, took the customer base and, not going to say anything that'll get me sued, but I think they were less happy with the service after we were bought.
Yeah.
And, it unfortunately, when they buy your company, they see it as a part of their bigger plan. They don't see it as your company. You're just a piece of their bigger puzzle.
Yep.
And how they treat it is very different than how you would treat it. It's one of your children, but to them, it's just it's a nut and bolt. It's a part of their P&L.
So you sold in 2017, right?
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to what it would have been 2019.
19, yeah. That's when we officially started round two.
So tell us a little bit more in detail about round two and Butler Business Systems, especially. And I've talked about this before with you, and I've mentioned it to Megan, your marketing coordinator, all the time. What a genius name. Can you talk about the relaunch of these two companies, or I guess launch of these two new companies, and the how you came on the name Round Two?
All right, you're going to out me on the fact that it wasn't truly a random drawing. So we originally picked a name, and we were going to not just develop a POS, but also a CRM package to go with it, and they work integrally together. So the challenge in a modern business is finding the web address. Virtually every web address you would ever want is taken. So you've almost got to find the web address and work backwards. And being as we wanted the same name, CRM, same name, POS.com, it took a little bit of thinking. So what we did was we opened it up to the whole company and had a employee name the company contest, and the winner got like $100 gift certificate at Recon Brewing. And so it was going to be this random drawing. We had all these names in a hat. The first one I pulled out, I'm like, that sucks. I would never, ever name a company that. Like, who even thought? Oh wait, it was Bastion POS, and it was the employee's name was Sebastian.
Oh,
like really, dude? Come on. So it was supposed to be a random, but then I was like, no, let's just get on the list and see what doesn't suck. And Round Two, I thought was like the best one. It was kind of poetic. It's like my second time around, but also it's Round Two. We're coming out swinging, and so I felt like it fit. So we ran with Round Two, and it wasn't as random as I made it out to be at the time, but I think we still came out with the best possible name.
So, is it fair to say that launching Future POS and, being in, would you say 12 countries? I mean, this is a globally known brand. So it is fair to say that, you kind of changed the entire restaurant industry when you went to market. Is that fair? Well,
I mean, we were a part of it. I want to pretend that I was like one of the only people there. There were some strong competitors at the time. We were always striving to be an innovator. So we would look for technology that we could implement in POS that nobody had put in before. I guess one example of that was we did a fingerprint recognition device, and nobody was doing this. And I literally found it on the internet one weekend for like $150. I'm like, man, that'd be really cool if you could just touch your finger and sign in. And so I bought one and got it in and started playing with it. And it was like, this is actually pretty slick. And then like we rolled it out. And in fact, my friend in Ohio, his competitor, they were very fierce competitors. And I think he beat him like 13 deals in a row with this fingerprint feature. Yeah. So like within a year, everybody in the industry had copied it basically.
Of course.
So it's kind of funny because now I'll go into a restaurant and I'll see that little fingerprint sensor on the side of a unit. I'll be like, that's there because of me.
Wow. Well, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, you know, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Because now, I mean, I guess we're on to facial recognition, right? But at one point, the cell phone, to unlock, like it was the fingerprint thing, which it's pretty cool. I don't know which came first, the restaurant software or the cell phone capabilities, but I think we can make an argument that you might be the brainchild behind fingerprint technology.
I'm not going to lie. Face rec is actually a better technology and it's faster. The geometry around face recognition is much more straightforward than fingerprint recognition. But yeah, I could get on the rabbit hole and bore the hell out of your audience.
So, what I was getting to is, Round Two, you're re-entering the same industry. And I'm guessing the goal remains the same, to innovate, change the restaurant industry on a global scale. The question is, what's your why for this, for Round Two?
I think it started differently than it ended up, I suppose. In the beginning, it was just, I love the technology. I love leveraging technology to make people's lives easier and better. So, the beginning of it was, what could we have done better in future? From a technology perspective, if I engineered this today with modern tech, what would that look like? But even some business decisions. I had gone to all those different countries thinking, my main competitor back then was Micros, and they had a global presence, and so immediately I'm like, well, I need a global presence too. And I think in hindsight, I was like, a lot of those different countries have very specific requirements, and it's not as straightforward as you'd think. Like Like the UK, they do their dates and times differently. So every single report that has a date or a time on it, or everywhere you display a date or a time, has to change. And that's the UK where they still speak English. You go to France, everything's got to be in French. Your tech support's got to be in French. Your manual's got to be in French. Same thing with Germany. You go to Italy, they've got a fiscal printer because they have a problem with people not paying their taxes in Italy. So it's like you look at Europe on a map and it just looks like a bunch of states like the people like you have in the United States, but they're not. They are vastly different, each and every one of them. So I think one of the things that I came away with this time is like let's focus on being a dominant player in the United States. And once we've achieved that goal, then let's worry about these other countries and which one actually makes sense to go to next. So there was that end of it. The technology side of it, I mean, we were able to take a step back. I mean, I'd been a Windows shop for 20 plus years, but Windows has kind of priced itself out of the market these days.
That's interesting.
You've got iPad and you've got some Android solutions out there, which are far from ideal. So we took a look at what would be the best operating system, and we ended up on Linux because it's just rock solid, reliable, and fast and free. And so that lowered the cost of hardware for our resellers. We picked Postgres for our database. We probably looked at 3 or 4 databases before we ended up there. So it was very refreshing to have the time to do it right. I had the time and money. I wasn't worried about the phone ringing, and that was nice. But then COVID hit. And it wasn't. It was kind of funny. I joked about it at the time. Like I was planning on losing money this year, so really this plays right into my master plan because we were an essential business. We did payment processing, so somebody had to answer the phone. So we kept coming into the office. We were sort of the control in that experiment. But I over my time at Future, I had made a lot of friends in the restaurant industry. I mean, I always say that's like one of the last places that you can live the American dream without a college education or anything. If you're willing to work hard and reasonably smart in the restaurant business, you can be successful. You're married to it, but if you're in that business, you already know that. So, but I saw people that I cared about getting hammered with these closures, and I mean, I can remember what was it, the 11th Frame? They were, Kevin Caparosa's out building gazebos in his parking lot.
I remember, yeah.
So he could have his customers social distanced. And I'm like, man, that breaks my heart because in 6 months that's going to be firewood, and
that's right.
And it's like just all these people really got hammered, and it kind of it sort of took on this new meaning of like Main Street versus Wall Street, because the other piece of that is they're getting hammered on the backside by the I don't want to name anybody, they'll get me sued, but the online ordering apps, they really just crush these restaurants with their fees. And during COVID, you had no choice.
That's right.
It's like you got to make a deal with the devil or you're not going to have a business at all. So I've seen, you probably remember Miko's Kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Big DoorDash place, no longer there.
Yeah.
And it's like, DoorDash took all your money. You were making food for DoorDash, basically.
Right.
So not that I think DoorDash is a bad thing. So if their legal department's listening, but no, I mean, it was, they were getting squeezed that way. The company that bought us rolled up a bunch of other legitimate products and pushed them into their credit card processing. And one of the games is, that they'll just raise your rates when you're not looking. And it's all net profit to them. So there's a big motivation there to just keep creeping people's rates up. And I think they use that analogy of like putting a frog in a pot of water and then you just turn the temperature up slowly until it boils. But if you throw him in boiling water, he'll jump out. But if you just leave him in there and turn it up slowly, he'll just sit in there and boil. And it's like, that's a really horrible way to look at your customers.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, that's kind of the model for larger institutions.
Yeah. So it went from like, this would be fun and to a way to help people I care about, So my goal is to drive down the price of point of sale. I want to drive the cost of ownership of a point of sale system as low as I can possibly drive it and still turn a profit. Because I really want to starve out some of these Wall Street, people that are just kind of there to victimize the industry that I care about.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: you're talking about the relationships that you had built in the restaurant industry, for decades. How important has that been with round 2?
Well, I mean, obviously those people are like, when are you coming back? So that's been kind of nice to kind of be like, we're back, and be able to actually help them and save them money and give them a reliable product and quality onshore tech support and no long-term auto renewing agreements. So, it's felt good to do that, but we've got a lot of work to do. I mean, we really have a vision of what we want to build, and it's going to be a blessing to the restaurateur. One of the things that I took away from my Future days is I always felt like if I create this new maintenance or this new little piece of functionality in the software, or if I give them this new report, I'm doing all these people this great service and they're going to love me for it. And what I came to realize, because we put metrics in there towards the end to see what people were actually using.
Yeah.
People use 5 maintenances, 5 reports. That's it.
Yeah. So
it was kind of an eye opener that there's a lot of data there that if they had the time to look through it, they would realize, oh, geez, this is a problem. They don't have the time. The thing is they would love to do these extra things, but they don't have any more hours in their day. So you have like, I want to do inventory and I want to do all this. And then you kind of just fall back into the reality of your day, and you don't get much more benefit out of it than a cash register. So one of the things we want to do this time is create more proactive metrics that, like almost like AI, where it'll reach out and say, hey, this doesn't look right. Or, everybody around you is charging more for that. Why are you giving it away? So anything we can do to give that restaurateur a fighting chance, we're going to do.
So it seems like with the round 2 technology and software, you are almost simplifying the point of sale, whereas previously a restaurateur or restaurant general manager would probably just look at their point of sale system as, like a monthly bill that they got to pay. Whereas your system is more of a partner to help you succeed. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. I always have had this philosophy in business: pigs, not hogs. Pigs eat, hogs get slaughtered. Just want to be a pig. I don't want to be this greedy person that becomes this parasitic presence in your business. Yeah. I want to be that partner that yes, it costs a little bit of money, but I'm worth what you pay me because I bring back dividends to you. I save you money here, or I help your business run more efficiently there. Another piece of it, we simplified the technology because we became aware of how much turnover there is in the restaurant business. And I took the approach this time that, you can do some fairly sophisticated stuff on eBay or Amazon with regards to commerce, and you don't need a manual and you don't need training. How do we make the point of sale that simple that you can just walk up to it and in minutes you're ringing up sales? And that's the approach we took, and I think we knocked it out of the park. It's the easiest point of sale. In fact, everywhere we go, they're like, "Oh my God, this is so easy."
Yeah. So nothing I don't experience this frequently, but I will say I'll never forget it. It's been about 5 or 6 years. It was prior to this chamber job. I was at a restaurant eating that had just switched their point of sale software, and the person behind the bar was, like aggressively, like poking the screen. I'm assuming that that's probably one of the biggest barriers for someone to switch. So it seems like you probably learned that through Future, and that's why you're designing this software to be as easy as possible.
Honestly, even as easy as ours is, it's a hardship. Everybody in the building has muscle memory associated with where that's at on the screen. I walk up, I poke this corner, I poke over here. And like when everything's now moved, I mean, there's no 2 point of sale systems that lay everything out exactly the same. So it's going to be different. And even a good friend of mine, Kurt at the Monroe, he's very savvy. His staff is top of the line, but it probably still took them 3 weeks to get, just used to it because it's different. And you're talking the best wait staff, probably some of the best wait staff in town. It's still different. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a major barrier from changing these systems out. But more and more people are willing to do it these days because they're getting such a raw deal on the backside.
That's right.
And their rates are going up. They're overpaying left and right, and they just they don't want a 3-year contract. That's one of the things I've always taken exception is there's like a couple of companies out there that want you to sign a 3-year deal to use their point of sale with the guys that you might just pick up and leave tomorrow. Nobody does that.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's such a hardship to learn a new system. Like nobody just is like, well, I think I could save $2 over here this week. I'll do it. I'll do this. It's a hard decision to make. And the reality of it is, if they want you to sign that 3-year contract, it's not for your advantage. It's because something's going to happen here soon that you're not going to like, and you're going to want to leave. And guess what? You're staying for another 2.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we touched base on how some of these larger companies with the credit card processing, it's a slow death, right,
Mhm.
to the increases. And I think the credit card processing, especially the integrated model that you guys are going with, for round two in this platform, can you talk about, because Future didn't necessarily have an integrated system. So can you talk about, your motivation to get into the credit card
Mhm.
processing game, and how that looks?
Well, I mean, I always love to joke about the credit card industry, that it's a scumbags industry, because it just is. But as much as I love to pick on those
Mhm.
guys, I think it's the nature of the relationship, really.
Mhm.
In the point of sale world, I'm going to sell you something, and when it breaks on a Friday night, you're going to call me, and I'm going to get in my car, and I'm going to come fix it. The credit card game is very different. You're never going to see that guy again. He's going to tell you all these wonderful things it's going to do and how great it's going to make your life. And if it doesn't, who cares? He's never
Mhm.
coming back. So I've always kind of characterized it as the credit card business is more of like a smash and grab,
Mhm.
whereas the point of sale, a good point of sale VAR is your trusted advisor.
Mhm.
He can say, well, you can say to him, well, I'm thinking about tablets, and he can tell you the pros and cons, and he's not dying to sell you one. If you want one, he'll sell you one. If you
Mhm.
don't, you're still his customer, great. But the credit card piece, we really had to embrace it. To bring some integrity to it, we had partnered with other companies where it's like, we're the point of sale, and you do the credit cards, and life will be great, and we get a little residual from that every month.
Mhm.
But what we found was, being in a position of unchecked power, they would just keep raising rates on people arbitrarily, and the split of it was the math was very questionable.
Yeah.
But it became obvious to me that if we don't control that end of it, our customers are just going to be getting fed to the wolves.
Mhm.
We come in, we have all the best intentions, we sign them up, and when it breaks, we're going to come fix it. But now we're out of the control of the credit card pricing, which is where the most of the money's at anyhow.
Mhm.
But you're going to get hammered on that, and neither one of us is going to be happy. So if we bring it in house, now we can control it. Now we can make sure you're not getting your rates raised on you, and you're treated fairly.
Yeah, so I'm assuming, like, as the back in the Future days, as this partner would raise the rates, the restaurateur, the general manager, they were probably calling John Giles and
Hmm.
saying, "What are you doing, man?"
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it seems like that was probably a big motivation to do it yourself and create your own way forward here, because now you're going to get that particular restaurant the best deal possible. Again, because you are a
Mhm.
partner for them, not necessarily just a machine that people like to
Yeah.
scream
Well,
at.
and truthfully, the first 2 years of this business was nothing point of sale. It was the CRM piece I mentioned was we work with a credit card processor, First Data, and they
Mhm.
give us data feeds every month that we can download and import. And we do that so that we know where every nickel comes from, every nickel
Mhm.
goes to. There's no funny math there. There's no, they don't control the pricing. So any resellers that we would sign up to sell round two POS, they control the pricing to their customers.
Mhm.
I'm hands off of it. Like, please don't screw it up or we'll both lose
Mhm.
money. But all kidding aside, like nobody's going to pull the rug out from under your customer
Mhm.
because you control that pricing. And if it gets raised, it's because you raised it.
Mhm.
It's, you're in full
Yeah.
control of your customers'
Yeah.
expenses.
So if I'm a round two reseller, if I get a restaurant to purchase the software from me, I also will then broker the credit card rates.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're very competitive,
Yeah.
and one of the things we've tried to do is educate the resellers
Mhm.
because the credit card thing was always kind of made to be very cryptic, smoke and mirrors. Like it's
Mhm.
intention. I always say it's intentionally confusing. You've got 200 fees where you could probably do it with six. It's just that they want you to look at that statement and be like, I don't know, and just walk away and worry
That's
about
right.
something
Yeah.
else. And they've been very good at that. In
Yeah.
fact, some of them don't even give you a statement anymore. I've been surprised how it's degraded just in the last few years.
Mhm.
Like you can't get your statement because if you can get your statement, you can see what you're paying, and then you can be mad enough to leave.
Of
But if you
course.
just can't get your statement, you're like, I
Yeah.
don't know. That's what I saw what the deposit was. That's what we got to work with.
Yeah.
You don't sit and look at those fees and agonize over them because they hide them from you.
Yeah, there's no doubt. In the instruction manual looks like a Harry Potter book. Like,
Yeah.
oh, your statement's easy to access. Here you go, and it's
Mhm.
like it's in chapter 13.
Yeah.
And well, that's good to know that you realize that industry, definitely has some shadiness, and to provide a solution where people can have some trust and have some faith that they're getting the best deal possible. I think that'll be a pretty successful winning model for you guys, moving forward. One of the things I always say, I go into schools and talk, being an entrepreneurship, starting a small business, it isn't for everyone. I always say that I'm a pretty good executive director. I would be an absolutely terrible entrepreneur. So can you talk about, the moment that you decided to go all in with Future? Did you think about it? Were you nervous? Did you just jump right in? Was there an event that happened that pretty much forced your hand? Like, talk about that process of becoming an entrepreneur.
I mean, I always had wanted to get there. So, I mean, since I started working on it in '94, the intention was always, we're going to find people to sell this. Now the game plan changed along the way. I thought, this person that used to be my employer will sell it. And then they picked up something else and that never materialized. So, but I guess all in, 98, I was working a job that, it was local, and it wasn't a bad job. It was comfortable. But they just, basically they brought me in to do a project where they were converting from DOS to Windows. The project was kind of done, which sort of put me in a maintenance mode that probably didn't work for either of us. So like, it was like springtime, and the boss calls me into his office and he's like, "Look, man, I can't justify the salary. I don't have enough work for you, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Man, I did this, and this." And then he was kind of like, "Well, I didn't think about it." And I looked outside in the sunshine and I'm like, "I got 6 months of unemployment coming." Like, "No, well, once you say it, you can't take that back. So I guess we're parting ways now. So I'll get on down to the unemployment office." But I had 6 months to kind of put the finishing touches on it, get it where I needed to get it, and go out and start networking, find people that would sell it for me, and got that off the ground. Very basic. But yeah, it was that, getting laid off. It was sometimes that's an entrepreneur's ideal situation. It's like, I got my bills covered. I have time to focus on this, 100%. And so that was.
So if let's say you didn't get laid off in that moment, do you think Future POS still would have happened? Would it have been delayed, or
probably would have been less buggy? But there was no turning back. You know what I mean? You can't work on something for 4 years and be like, maybe I'll just do something different now. It's like, nah, I got a lot of sweat equity in this, and I'm going to see it through wherever that ends up.
So there's a general perception of entrepreneurship and starting your own small business that it is the most daunting thing possible. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure it is very difficult. But is there any of those myths that you can debunk right now that may help someone, finally decide to take the risk and make the next move?
Well, I think it needs to be a calculated risk. I think a lot of times, I've seen people that were like, "I'm going to be an entrepreneur now." And they, cashed in their 401k and rented a building and bought all these supplies and things like that. And it's like, you don't even have a customer. So I think that the prudent approach is to do it on the cheap as long as you can until you've got it generating some revenue. And then you can well, is this enough to pay my bills? Is this enough to hire somebody? But I mean, some businesses, obviously you got to go all in from day one, but when you get so many things going at one time, it's hard to manage them all properly. You're starting all these things from scratch. You can't assume that everybody you plug in is going to know what you're thinking and or even care to do a good job. So, I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong, and the more balls you put up in the air, the more balls you're likely to drop. So if I was going to start a landscaping business, I'd start by buying a lawnmower and get a lawnmower route, and then do some mulch, and then then I'd buy a little bit better equipment, So, I mean, you just got to, instead of swinging for the fences on the first pitch, you need to have some incremental successes and then build on those successes and figure out what makes the most sense next. A lot of times you go into it with preconceived notions, and then you get in there for a while and you're like, well, that really wasn't the way I thought it was. And if you go all in, it's like, I'm hiring all these people and I'm renting a building and I'm buying this and I'm buying that. And it's like, you've burned through a lot of capital, and you're still not even sure how you're going to make money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think figuring out how you're going to make money and proving that that works,
Mm-hmm.
probably a good start.
Any regrets in your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, maybe. I always say when you fire somebody, you always regret that you didn't fire them sooner. But no, all kidding aside, there's things I would do differently, but most everything we did got us to where we got, and we were a top 5 company. Would I like to be number 1? Absolutely. That is certainly one of the goals this time through. And being honest with yourself and being able to take a step back and fill out your own report card. It's hard to be objective with what you did wrong. But there were certainly things, like I said, the going outside the United States, the fact that we were stuck on 20-year-old technology and kind of literally stuck there because we had this 20-year investment in it, being able to sell that and say, blank sheet of paper, how would I do it today?
Yeah.
It's kind of a blessing, So, I don't know if I answered your question or not. I tend to get on tangents.
Yeah, no. Well, so, you had mentioned, like entering the international market and things that you learned through your time with Future that are obviously helping you now with round 2. How important are some of those, small failures for long-term success?
I mean, everybody has them. I think the big thing is learning from them, being willing to admit that, here's what we could have done different. And I'm the guy in charge. Ultimately, it falls on my shoulders. So, I know a lot of people like, well, if that guy hadn't goofed it up or, well, you're his boss. So, there's a lot to managing people too. I mean, that's a whole other art form that, in the beginning wasn't very good at it, got better along the way. But it's kind of funny. Like in the beginning, you see in people what you want to see in them, and by the end, you're looking for red flags.
Yeah, absolutely. Now in the chamber space, I'm put a real big emphasis on professional development. I played basketball at Slippery Rock University, and as a basketball player, we had to make sure we got our shots up. Practice free throws, lifted weights, all that jazz that I don't miss at all. But I apply that to my professional career. I take my professional development to be the best chamber director very seriously. How do you view professional development, continuing education, staying ahead of trends? How important is that?
Well, I think at this business, a lot of it is about passing on the knowledge that I got from Future. I don't think there's nobody actually working for me now that worked at Future. So, they hear the stories, secondhand or whatever. But I kind of try to share the whys and wherefores with them, and let them make some mistakes. I won't just lord over them no, this is what you need to do. I'll just go through the options with them, give them how I see it, but let them make their own decision and sometimes make a mistake, sometimes stub their toe. But it helps their professional development to allow them to grow because they see that was a mistake. It's not me telling you. It's kind of like your parents, you know what I mean? Like they're going to tell you don't touch that hot stove, but you're still not sure it's hot, And, but it's been great. I've enjoyed mentoring the guys that work for me now. That I call them kids because they're young enough mostly to be my kids. But it's very rewarding watching them grow and develop and start to come back to me and tell me, tell me things that they see now that they didn't see in the beginning. It's like, well, here's why I think that's not probably a great idea. And I'm like, it's a good eye, So, yeah.
Yeah. So, with the round 2 and Butler Business System, you guys are very involved in the community, very generous in the community. I'm sure it was the same with Future. Can you talk about, how important that is, especially for a business like yours, who will not just be doing business with folks inside of Butler County, but, hopefully across the entire world. How important is it to be involved in your local community?
Well, I mean, I've always put a lot of emphasis on it. So Butler Biz, in the Future days, we had a comparable setup. We had Future POS and we had Future POS of PA. Because the goal was to eat our own cooking, to make sure that we had it right before we tried to sell it in other markets. But being a part of that local community, I think, is what differentiates you from a private equity company that's selling it on the web.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a part of your community. I'm going to come bring my family and eat in your restaurant.
That's right.
You buy it from Toast, they're never coming to your restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to hammer you on your credit card rates,
Mm-hmm.
potentially. But yeah, it's, we want to be a part of the community. We want to, hire people from the community. When it breaks, we want a familiar face to come in to fix it. It's, I trying to bring that personal aspect of it back.
I think that's important. And you nailed it. I always say, like, when you go to a small business, these are the folks that go to church with you. Their kids play on your kids' team. They're giving the gift cards for the basket raffles. It's so important to be involved in the community. What does the future look like for John Giles? And even better, like, what is the end goal for round 2 and the Butler Biz platform?
Well, I mean, like I said, it started out as kind of like scratching my technology itch, but it's turned into kind of this mission to help the restaurant industry. The people that used to sell my software, the resellers, a lot of them got disenfranchised when all these purchases occurred. So, anybody that's been hurt by how things have gone in the last 5 years, we want to be there to help. My long-term exit strategy is to get this profitable. And then we want to make it into an ESOP, an employee-owned company, because one of my regrets with selling Future is, and I always said, I don't want to drive past that building and see it dark and know that all those jobs I created for the Butler, greater Butler area are now gone. We went somewhere else. I mean, that would not sit well with me. So, we wanted to kind of create those jobs again, but also make sure they never go away again. So by making it an employee-owned company, it'll always be here for as long as it's relevant, and hopefully, create good paying jobs for Butler people for, generations to come.
Yeah. And in most cases, when, I'm familiar with the ESOP concept, in most cases when they are set up and they operate at a profit, usually folks that retire from ESOPs retire early and they're very well off. So that's awesome. That would be a great legacy for you, in my humble professional opinion here. I think that's pretty awesome.
I don't think there's a better way to ride off into the sunset than making sure everybody you care about is taken care of. So yeah, I made my money on Future, and this is my chance to pay it forward.
That's very cool. Yeah. Now, so here is the last question today, and it's a very important one. What is the single most important piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur or someone who started a business and is in a funk?
I mean, there's a lot of things I've learned along the way. Obviously it's going to take more hard work than you think it's going to take. It's not going to be as easy as you think it's going to be. I think human nature is you start counting your chickens before you should. But I think you just got to realize going into it that it's not going to be easy, and there's not going to be one home run that you hit. There's not going to be like that like it's an hour movie, and at the end of it, like everything works out great. It's just not like that. It's you're shooting, you're swinging for the fences all the time, and some days you get a base hit and some days you strike out, but you just keep building on your successes, and also learn from your failures. Like when you didn't get it right, what did you get wrong? Did you assume there was more market there than there was? Did you put too much trust in somebody that maybe you should have trusted and verified? Just every time you don't win, you need to kind of self-evaluate and figure out how you're not going to make that same mistake again. And if you just keep building on your successes and learning from your failures, I think you'll start to turn the corner of making a lot more successes than failures. And then it's kind of a snowball effect.
Small wins. Yeah. Hit singles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, John, thank you very much for coming in today. The future's really bright for round 2 in Butler Business Systems, and we appreciate your insight.
Thank you. And thank you for having us. We're very happy to be here.